There's a sentence that was spoken today by an official from one of the most battle-damaged military organizations in the Middle East to the AFP news agency, on the record, in the middle of a crisis that is now measured in days rather than weeks. And that sentence just redrew the map of every possible war scenario that American and Israeli planners have been gaming for months. A Hezbollah official said Wednesday that the Lebanese militant group would not intervene militarily in the event of limited U.S. strikes on its backer, Iran, but would consider any attack against Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei a red line. Read that twice. Hezbollah, weakened by the 2024-2025 Israel war that destroyed most of its arsenal, killed thousands of its fighters, and eliminated its former Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, just drew a public line in the sand that tells America and Israel exactly where the escalation boundary is. Limited strikes on Iran, Hezbollah stays out. Attack on Khamenei personally. Hezbollah enters with everything it has left. Lebanon's Foreign Minister Youssef Raji on Tuesday urged the Iran-backed militant group not to get involved in any fighting between the United States and Iran, expressing concerns about a new possible conflict with Israel. Raji told journalists in Geneva that Lebanese officials had been warned that in the event of another Israel-Hezbollah war, Israel would strike harder against civilian infrastructure across Lebanon than in the previous round of fighting. Beirut's airport, Lebanon's power grid, the civilian infrastructure of a country that has still not rebuilt from the last war. Israel told Lebanon's government, not Hezbollah, but the Lebanese government itself, that this is what comes next if Hezbollah moves. And Hezbollah's answer, delivered through AFP on the same day that message was relayed, was not a step back. It was a very precise statement of exactly the condition under which Hezbollah will accept that threat and intervene anyway. Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem said, "When Trump threatens Imam Khamenei, he threatens tens of millions who follow his leadership, and it's our duty to confront this threat by any means." Hezbollah considers the threat to Khamenei to be a threat to us, and we have full authority to take whatever measures we deem appropriate to confront it. Any means, full authority. Those phrases, combined with today's AFP statement, create a precise strategic map. America can bomb Iran's nuclear sites. America can strike Iran's air defense networks. America can hit IRGC command infrastructure, ballistic missile storage, naval assets. All of that falls within limited strikes that do not cross Hezbollah's threshold. But the decapitation strategy, the plan to kill Khamenei specifically that American and Israeli targeting teams have been building since the leaked war planning documents surfaced last month, that plan now has a clearly stated consequence that goes beyond Iran's four-layer succession government. It activates Hezbollah. On Wednesday, two senior Lebanese officials told Reuters that Israel had warned Lebanon that it would strike the country hard, targeting civilian infrastructure, including the airport, if Hezbollah gets involved in any U.S.-Iran war. Meanwhile, the IDF is preparing for the possibility that Hezbollah will attack Israel in the case that a regional conflict escalates. Israeli defense officials explained that the extensive attack carried out by the IDF in Lebanon on Friday was intended to undermine Hezbollah's capabilities in preparation for its possible response to a strike on Iran. The Lebanese Health Ministry reported that 10 people were killed and 50 were wounded in IDF strikes in the area of Bekaa. According to military sources, the targets of the attacks were weapons and infrastructure that Hezbollah had recently prepared, including rockets, drones, and underground warehouses. Stop. Israel struck Hezbollah targets in Lebanon this week, on Friday, killing 10 people, targeting weapons and underground warehouses that Hezbollah had been preparing. Not in response to an attack, preemptively, before any Iran strike has happened. Israel is already degrading Hezbollah's capacity in Lebanon as preparation for the scenario where Hezbollah's red line gets crossed, the scenario where Khamenei is targeted and everything Hezbollah has left is launched toward Israel simultaneously. That is the operational logic of what you are watching unfold in real time. Israel is not waiting to see if the Khamenei red line gets crossed before it begins softening Hezbollah's response capacity. It is doing that softening now, this week, because the decapitation plan has not been publicly abandoned, and Hezbollah's public statement today makes clear that Israeli planners understand what the crossing of that line would unleash. The question that every intelligence service in the world is now trying to answer is the same question that Hezbollah's AFP statement leaves deliberately unanswered. If Khamenei is killed, what does full authority to take whatever measures we deem appropriate actually look like from an organization that has lost most of its arsenal, most of its leadership, and most of its Lebanese political protection, but has not lost its missiles? Stay with me. Because the answer to that question intersects with a physics problem that American carrier commanders have been staring at for weeks. And today the numbers got significantly more alarming. To understand why the timing of Hezbollah's red line statement matters as much as its content, you need to understand what happened in the Persian Gulf on the same day that AFP was publishing the red line declaration. because the two events are connected by a single strategic calculation that both Hezbollah and Iran have been making simultaneously. At the apex of Iran's technological arsenal stand the Fatah-1 and Fatah-2 hypersonic missiles. Their stated capabilities, speeds reaching Mach 15 and extreme maneuverability, are designed to defeat even the most advanced missile defense systems. The very existence of such weapons forces U.S. naval commanders to account for a threat that can change course unpredictably at velocities that leave virtually no margin for error or reaction. Figures in the Revolutionary Guard have declared that the Iranian missile is a maneuvering hypersonic missile that can reach Tel Aviv within 4 minutes while bypassing detection and interception systems. 4 minutes to Tel Aviv. The Persian Gulf is closer than Tel Aviv. American carriers, currently positioned in the Arabian Sea and approaching the Gulf, are operating within range envelopes that reduce that 4-minute figure significantly for certain missile trajectories. The source document for today's video describes an even tighter window: 5 to 6 minutes for American bases in the region, 4 minutes for naval assets in the Gulf itself. Compare that to the previous generation of Iranian ballistic missiles that took 10 to 12 minutes to reach the same targets. The difference is not just speed, it is decision time. It is the window available to a carrier's combat information center between the moment a missile launch is detected and the moment a defensive response must be locked in. The Fatah-2 separates from its booster and glides along the upper atmosphere at speeds exceeding Mach 13. Its defining feature is its maneuverability. It can change course mid-flight, making it incredibly difficult for U.S. Navy interceptor algorithms to predict where it will be 5 seconds from now, rendering older defensive calculations obsolete. Traveling at Mach 13 creates so much friction that the missile becomes encased in a sheath of superheated plasma. This plasma absorbs radio waves, potentially creating a blind spot for the ship's radar sensors during certain phases of flight. A blind spot during the most critical phase of the intercept, for a missile traveling at Mach 13 toward a ship carrying 5,000 sailors. That plasma sheath effect is not theoretical. It is the physics of hypersonic flight, documented across every hypersonic program in every country that has developed them. The plasma blanket does not make the missile invisible, it delays detection. And when you are working with a 4 to 6 minute engagement window on a moving target, delayed detection does not mean harder intercept. It means no intercept. Military simulations suggest that a single hypersonic missile has a low probability of penetrating the Lincoln's Aegis shield. To succeed, Iran would need to launch a saturation swarm, firing dozens of ballistic and hypersonic missiles simultaneously to overwhelm the ship's fire control computers. Iran does not need to sink the ship to win. They only need a mission kill. The kinetic energy of a 2,000-pound object hitting the flight deck at Mach 10 would punch a hole through the runway and potentially detonate aviation fuel below. This would not sink the vessel, but it would render the flight deck unusable, preventing the F-35s from launching and effectively removing the armada from the fight. Mission kill. That concept, removing the carrier from the fight without sinking it, is the operational goal that Iran's missile planners have been optimizing toward for years. You do not need to send 5,000 sailors to the bottom of the ocean to end America's air campaign. You need to make the flight deck unusable. You need to destroy the catapults, rupture the aviation fuel lines, create a fire that takes the ship out of combat operations for the weeks it would take to either repair or replace it. A mission kill on both carriers simultaneously removes 150 aircraft from the campaign before a single American bomb reaches a second-wave target. Marco Rubio said this week, confirming what Witkoff's Fox News appearance implied earlier, that America expected Iran to accept all of Washington's conditions under military pressure, and instead Iran rejected them and placed counter-conditions on the United States. His exact words described Iran as presenting unacceptable conditions, rather than accepting American demands. The man who expected Iran to surrender publicly acknowledged that Iran did the opposite. And the question Rubio could not answer, the question that America's own Joint Chiefs Chairman has been trying to answer in classified meetings, is how you compel a country to accept your terms when your primary compellence instrument, 2 carrier strike groups in a narrow body of water, is sitting within 4 to 6 minute strike range of missiles that your defense systems cannot reliably intercept. Hezbollah just told you what happens if America tries to solve that problem by removing Khamenei. The missiles tell you what happens if America tries to solve it by keeping the carriers where they are. Thursday is Geneva. The proposal is arriving, and the physics are not waiting for the diplomacy to conclude. There's a detail from today's developments that ties every thread of this week together into a single coherent picture. And it is a detail that appeared in the source document for this video rather than in any mainstream wire service, which is precisely why it deserves more attention than it has received. In the 48 hours surrounding today's Hezbollah Red Line statement and the Geneva nuclear talks, 4 military aircraft crashed in different countries simultaneously. An Iranian helicopter went down. A Turkish F-16 supplied by America crashed. A South Korean F-16 went down. A Kazakh Su-30 was lost. 2 aircraft from countries aligned with America, 2 from countries with closer ties to Russia and Iran, all within the same 48-hour window, across 4 different nations, with no publicly confirmed connection between the incidents. Military aircraft crash with unfortunate regularity in normal times. 4 crashes in 4 countries in 48 hours during the highest tension period the Middle East has seen in decades is either a statistical coincidence or it is something else. The source document raises the possibility that what the world witnessed this week was a test, one side demonstrating a capability, the other responding in kind, both sides doing it in a manner that allows for plausible deniability and cannot be attributed publicly. Electronic warfare, cyber intrusion into flight control systems, directed energy, the technologies that could produce simultaneous aircraft losses without visible ordnance are the same technologies that have been discussed in classified threat assessments on all sides of this confrontation for years. Nobody is claiming responsibility. Nobody's publicly connecting the 4 crashes. And that silence is itself information. Because in a crisis where every party is simultaneously negotiating and preparing for war, demonstrating a capability that cannot be officially acknowledged is more useful than demonstrating one that can. Iran has military and security agreements with its allies. And now is an appropriate time to make use of these agreements. An Iranian foreign ministry official told Reuters, an appropriate time to make use of these agreements. That sentence, sitting alongside the CM-302 Chinese anti-ship missile deal, the Russian Verba shoulder-fired system deliveries, the Su-35 fighter jet negotiations, and today's Hezbollah red line statement, describes a country that is not preparing to sign a surrender document in Geneva. It is preparing to make the cost of this confrontation legible to every party that has assumed Iran's resistance has a limit. The Modi-Netanyahu Knesset moment deserves a final accounting here, because what Modi did in Tel Aviv this week is not just a bilateral diplomatic event. It is a statement about which side of the coming division of the world India has chosen, made at the exact moment that division is hardest. India imports nearly half its crude through the Strait of Hormuz. 9 million Indian citizens work in Gulf countries whose remittances underpin entire state economies. India has maintained decades of careful neutrality on Israel-Palestine, questions that run directly through its Muslim-majority constituencies. For Narendra Modi to stand in the Knesset and receive a standing ovation while F-22 Raptors sit on Israeli runways for the first time in history. That is not a small diplomatic gesture. It is a civilizational alignment statement made at personal political cost, in front of the entire Muslim world during Ramadan, while the Gulf burns with tension. And it will have consequences, not immediately, not in a press release, but in the recalibration that every Muslim-majority country in the region, every country hosting American bases, every country relying on American security guarantees, every country that watched 14 of its governments condemn Ambassador Huckabee's Greater Israel statement last week, is now performing about what alignment with the current American project actually means for their long-term sovereignty. Bloomberg reported that Iran has been loading oil onto tankers at a rapid pace in recent days. Iran is loading oil. Saudi Arabia is pre-positioning emergency oil supplies to foreign customers. Israel is striking Hezbollah warehouses in the Bekaa Valley. Hezbollah is publicly identifying the one condition under which it re-enters the war. The USS Gerald R. Ford is docked in Crete with broken toilets and sailors who want to resign. The Fatah II has a 4-minute flight time to targets in the Gulf. Marco Rubio is admitting publicly that Iran rejected all of America's demands and placed counter-demands instead. And tomorrow, Thursday, February 26th, the 3rd round of Geneva nuclear talks begins. The Iranian proposal is either already submitted or arriving today. The proposal either contains something Trump can describe as progress, or it contains something that Washington will announce as insufficient. And the answer to that binary question will determine whether every other piece of information in today's video remains geopolitical analysis or becomes historical prologue. Hezbollah drew its red line today. Iran is loading tankers. The carriers are moving. And somewhere in an underground bunker in Tehran, an 85-year-old supreme leader whose visitors are brought to him blindfolded is reading about a Knesset standing ovation for Modi, and understanding that the world has already begun dividing itself into the shape it will hold after whatever comes next. Share this right now, because Hezbollah just publicly told America where the war ends and the catastrophe begins, and today the world found out exactly what that boundary is.